Daniel Ricciardo has returned to Formula One this season and is currently the favorite to replace Sergio Perez at Red Bull. Now, there have been rumors around Red Bull not being happy with how Sergio Perez has been performing, and it's safe to say that Sergio Perez, since his win in Baku, he's not really been in top form. He's had a few podiums here and there, but overall, if you look at his season, it's been under par. This was precisely why Daniel Ricciardo was brought back in Hungary as it replaced Nick de Vries. Now, since then, he's done a couple of races before the summer break. He suffered from a wrist injury because of which he had to miss a few races. Then he came back in Austin. Now, ever since his comeback, he's had 3 races. In these 3 races, he's been okayish in Austin. It wasn't too bad. He had a poor strategy that affected his final result. In Mexico, he was brilliant. There's no doubt about it. He even out-qualified Sergio Perez, and even in the race, he scored valuable points. In Brazil, I think he was a bit unlucky. He could have probably got a better result, maybe even scored points if it was not for the first lap collision or first lap incident where he was caught out, unfortunately. So yes, overall, in terms of performances, he's been there and thereabouts. It's not as if he's too far off the mark, and it's not as if he's really swept everyone off their feet as well. So it's been a bit middling. Having said that, if tomorrow Red Bull takes a decision to replace Sergio Perez with Daniel Ricciardo, it would make sense because Sergio Perez has been underperforming for a while now. Before Red Bull signs Daniel Ricciardo as a replacement for Sergio Perez, there's one thing that the team needs to keep in mind. And that one thing is a major red flag before a decision is made. In this video, we'll address the major red flag that Red Bull needs to be wary of before it signs Daniel Ricciardo. Now, to do that, first of all, let's take a look at how Daniel Ricciardo's successors have done against Max Verstappen. Now, Daniel Ricciardo left the team in 2018. Since then, there have been 3 different drivers that have joined Max Verstappen, and all of them have been dominated. First, in 2019, it was Pierre Gasly. Then Alex Albon from mid-2019 till the end of 2020. And then in 2021, we had Sergio Perez, who is currently driving for Red Bull as well. Now, let's go through how each of these 3 drivers performed against Max Verstappen as teammates. Now, first of all, let's take a look at Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly's stint was short and very disappointing. In around 12 races that the 2 drivers were together, the qualifying record was 111. Even the race record was 111. And if we talk about the points, Max Verstappen almost had 3 times the points than Gasly scored. By mid-season of 2019, Gasly was replaced by Alex Albon. Now, when we talk about Alex Albon teamed up with Max Verstappen from mid-2019 till the end of the 2020 F1 season. Now, during this time, the qualifying head-to-head was 125 in favor of Max. In the races where both drivers finished and neither had a DNF, the gap was 117. And then finally, in terms of points, it was 177 compared to 311 in favor of Max. Now, similar to Pierre Gasly, even Alex Albon was only able to out-qualify and outrace Max Verstappen only once. It does not read good, right? And as a result, Alex Albon was also replaced by Sergio Perez by the end of the 2020 F1 season. Now, this brings us to Sergio Perez. In terms of his performances against Max Verstappen, in qualifying, he currently stands at 10.54. In races, he stands at 8.48 in the races where both drivers finished. And finally, in terms of points, it is 753 in favor of Perez compared to 1375.5 for Max. Now, this is where Sergio Perez stands in terms of performance against Max Verstappen, and this is where all 3 drivers have stood. Neither have been able to truly perform or even be competitive against the Red Bull driver. Now, let's get to the red flag that I was talking about at the start of the video. First of all, let's talk about the performance of Daniel Ricciardo against Max Verstappen at one of the most crucial points of Verstappen's career. Now, when we talk about Max Verstappen, when he joined Red Bull in 2016, he was still a bit immature, he was a teenager, so you can expect that, and he had still not acquired the ability to maximize everything every time. That was something that was lacking in Max's overall game at that point in time. In 2017, he got a bit better. By 2018's start, he was arguably a bit quicker than Daniel Ricciardo. However, he was still making a lot of mistakes. It was these mistakes that arguably caused him a win in China in 2018, and it probably cost him a win in Monaco in 2018 as well. However, according to Max himself, as he has talked about in quite a few interviews as well, the race in Monaco in 2018 proved to be a turning point for him, because from that point onwards, he tightened a few things up. He became a bit more mature, and the risk to reward ratio was more calculated from him. Now, from this point onwards, I think it's important we take a look at how Daniel Ricciardo performed against a Max Verstappen that was more mature, more measured, and arguably closer to the kind of Max Verstappen that we see these days. Now, post Monaco GP, here is how Daniel Ricciardo fared against Max Verstappen. In qualifying, it was 114. In races where both drivers finished, it was 1-7. And finally, the points are 98 to 214. Now, there's a caveat when it comes to the points because Daniel Ricciardo arguably suffered the brunt of the poor reliability of the Renault power unit at that point in time and had quite a few DNFs, and that cost him. So yes, even if we keep that aside, the two arguably comparisons when it comes to the race and qualifying, they are startling because post Monaco GP 2018, Daniel Ricciardo only once outqualified Max Verstappen. Then even in the races, only once he was able to beat Max Verstappen in a race. If we take a look at these numbers from Daniel Ricciardo and draw a direct comparison with what Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon and Sergio Perez did, you can see that these numbers are so comparable. There's hardly anything to pick. And that is where the red flag comes in. Arguably, since that race in Monaco GP in 2018, Max Verstappen leveled up. And if we take a look at the comparisons and performances of all his teammates, they fall within the same parameters. While Daniel Ricciardo is often said as a driver who was able to be more competitive against Max Verstappen, but he did that in 2016 and 2017, the years where Max was still growing up. In 2018, when he was closer to a finished product, even Daniel Ricciardo was dominated like anything. Now, before we go ahead, there is one caveat as well, and that is maybe Daniel Ricciardo lost the motivation because he knew he was moving out of Red Bull by mid-season. Now, once you have that, the shoulders drop, the motivation goes, and maybe Daniel Ricciardo suffered from that. Now, whether that happened or not is a gamble that Red Bull needs to take. Now, when we talk about Daniel Ricciardo and his perception in 2018 and compare it with his perception in 2013, there's a stark difference. In 2018, Daniel Ricciardo was considered one of the best drivers on the grid. In 2023, it's hard to say that that is the case. And that is the major red flag when Red Bull is trying to make a decision to replace Sergio Perez with Daniel Ricciardo. Is Daniel Ricciardo the right driver to replace Sergio Perez? In terms of commercial factor, yes. In terms of performance, I don't know. Again, that is a risk that Red Bull will have to take if it is so convinced about signing Daniel Ricciardo. Now, whether it does or not, it's not up to me. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think this major red flag means anything? Or are you going to put it down to Daniel Ricciardo losing the competitiveness and the motivation in the later parts of 2018? Do let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching and see you next time.